Hello, hello, hello. Sanbonani, Likai, Dumelang. Welcome to Book Circle Capital. My name is Sewela Langeni from Book Circle Capital. Today is such a big honor to host Nokulinda for the launch of her book Ancestry. Launch, snack, signing. Because that was the brief to say it's a village party, so that's why we've never done a launch like this. I am so honored, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for braving the rain, come sun, come whatever, you're here as always. So yeah, mine is just to welcome you and say grateful that you chose to be here. It's such a beautiful day. So blessed to have a launch like this. The bathrooms are that side, books are available in the shop. So the brief was, do not make this anyway contrived and too serious, too Joburg glitz. It's not that. So it's not like your typical book launch. We're not going to have that whole academic conversation around thoughts about the books. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hand over, and then we'll have a brief chat, and then after that, there's going to be food and parts. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so we're going to serve food. While you're eating, think of your questions, and then we'll have a roving mic. Then you can have the one-on-one. Then you have a book sign, pictures. Lots of pictures. Tag.
Please tag me.
Yes, Book Circle Capital. And thank you for coming. Can we just clap now?
Microphone. I'm so nervous. Okay. I'm going to put the seat too, so that I can relax and I can relax. Okay. I'm going to teach you a song. It's called Amakuli. I tried to teach people, I think, last night. It's in Ingoma. I say, sometimes Amakuli Zobeko. Then you guys have to say, Sengati Neti Ngabakona. Okay. And then only after I say Amakunya Zobeko. So sometimes I'll say, sometimes Amakunya Zobeko. Sengati Neti Ngabakona. Sometimes Amakunya Zobeko. Sengati Neti Ngabakona. Sometimes Amakunya Zobeko. Sengati Neti Ngabakona. Sometimes Amakunya Zobeko. 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 All I did was write the book, and that you race, I might add. I didn't want, but somebody wasn't letting me go. So thank you, Nova, for the past, 7 years or more, asking me pretty much every month, and then quarterly, then weekly, when is the book coming? And now it's here. So thank you, my friend. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being there. Thank you for listening to my ramblings and rantings and shouting about Joburg, So thank you so much for that. I really have to make a special mention to that. You've been a very big part of my book writing. Thank you to Maria as well, because before I shout at you, I shout at her. So thank you for absorbing all the shoutings. And also just being by my side all the time. Organizing prayers, even though I don't want to do it, don't want to speak English, fuck these radio stations, I don't like them, But thank you, my friend, and thank you for making me look cute as well.
Yes.
And thank you to my husband. angifuna ukusho kakhulu ukuthi ngikubongela wena ngoba zinento zethu kodwa nje. Thank you.
I'm working.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Gogo Mahlodi, Puleng, virtual bestie, Gillian. Gillian has sat in the front of every single thing that I've done for the past 11 years. Every single time. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And obviously, I want to thank my family, Abeko. Thank you, Linda Girl, for coming. Just have another person on the pen. You know, we're tribalists, so abantu abangasekhaya siyabathanda nokuthi sosestenger. Have to have special mention for abantu bangakithi ngoba mesefuna ukuthi singishine. Mase ningihluphe egoli mina ngeke ngizithi ngigubha umthwarele. Sizovele ngimshine nje, you know. But yeah, I mean, what do I say? Thank you. Thank you, Akona. For bothering me, you know. Thank you, Tandy, for bothering me. I could go into so many different people in this audience and Tando at the back. Everybody who's here, I think I've interacted with most of you. I don't know your names, some of you, but we are laughing, we are taking care, and you are the reason why Ancestory is the success that it is. I have no publisher. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to be told what to do. Didn't have a publisher, didn't know what I was doing. So I just kind of put the book on Instagram and I was like, I get to say what? And you guys were there, and I'm now in my second print, so I'm going into... I have no idea how this has happened. 500 books are gone.
Wow.
It was just like Instagram, word of mouth, and things like that. Thank you, Suela, for carrying the book. I just sent an email like, hi, I don't know what to do. Do you want to hold this thing for me in your bookstore? My friend Nova said you would, and she did. You know, so thank you for that. I don't have a big speech prepared, but I do want to tell you we've got nice food, which I want you to enjoy and take time. Inside your party packs, I've put little sticker reminders of different things. The one that my sister forced me to do says crack like a seed. Because one day during one of our conversations, I hit upon a genius moment of, we were talking about the feedback that I was getting from people saying Gugu's Ancestory has them wide open, you know, they are interrogating things that they've never interrogated before, finding the truth in places that they never had considered, and the book had just had them wide open. And so when we were having that conversation, I was saying to her that we don't have a choice but to break. The world, it breaks us. Our histories, our families, the pain, the vulnerability, love, all of it causes us to crack a little bit inside, to let in more care, let in more joy, let in more courage, let in more resilience. But we have to have the ability to rebuild from that. So to crack like a seed that germinates into something in a nurturing environment, a seed that knows that it can be a little spot today, but 10 years from now, 30 years from now, it will be a tree that gives shade with healthy roots, that gives fruit, that is for the coming generations. And to use that kind of, don't know what you call it, the metaphor of cracking like a seed, to say, we know all the things that are wrong. We know all the things that are bad. We know all the trauma. We know all the damage. We know all the language for talking about the anger, the hate, the defeat, the helplessness, the hopelessness. We know the language of what is wrong. We know the language for why we aren't going home, why we aren't in our families, why we aren't in our relationships. We know the language for why we don't have friends in the city. We know the language for what capitalism is doing to us. But what we don't have the language for is the language for how do we grow. Because fundamentally, we have an imperative to the institutions of our communities, to the institution of our humanity, and to the future of those coming after us, whether we give birth to them or we don't, whether we like them or we don't, we have an institutional role to play. Like a tree plays a role in a forest, like a flower plays a role, like the grass plays a role. So whatever seed you are, yes, your environment will determine the quality and the trajectory of where you might go, but you have a responsibility to break to grow. So don't shatter like a glass English. Crack like a seed. A seed that grows. A seed that came from another plant. A seed that is nurtured by its nature around it. A seed that is encoded genetically to be what it's going to be. A seed doesn't have to think, oh, am I going to be a tree? How many branches will I have? How many roots will I have? How deep will they grow? The tree does what it needs to do. The seed does what it needs to do. And so the only, I don't know, but I have to talk till the food is ready. Is it ready?
Gogo speaks.
Please check the food and get the Our responsibility, and I mean, I've written about this in Ancestory. I know I also have to reference the book, but please also buy it so you can know what I think. Even if you've already bought it, please buy it again. I ordered another 300 copies in Please just finish them. Oh, and there's a journal coming as well.
Sign us up.
Yes, so please prepare your coins for that as well. I've prepared a journal that is going to be the companion for the book, for you to do your musings and your journalings and whatever you want to do. But in the meantime, please remember, for all the pain, for all your nuance and discourse, and all the things you think are happening to you only for the first time, for all the things that you think are painful only for you, there's nothing new under the sun. You're just a seed. And the seed has come from a long line of perfectly genetically coded to know exactly what they need to do. And that is your responsibility in the forest of your life, in the ecosystem of your community, to take your place and crack so you can grow. There will be no growth if you don't break down the middle. There will be no taking your place if you don't crack down the middle. There will be no becoming a tree for the grandchildren and nieces and nephews and future generations to harvest fruit, to get shade and protection, to play in and find beauty in if you don't crack down the middle. There's no seed that grows without cracking down the middle, and that is the only message that I have for you today. That I couldn't, my sister every day this week, she edited my book and she bosses me around like all sisters do. But she said, "Batshele lapha enkonzweni Ancestory ukuthi crack like a seed." And she was like, "But hey, what have you planned?" And I couldn't think of it. And I thought, when I'm looking at everybody's faces, I know. Wenkonzo, your Ancestory, I'm gonna find something to say, and look at it, I did it! I did it! I made sense, yeah, and I'm motivated, comfort you, because you guys were all crying, talking about the book is so hard. Then I tell you, the book is gonna be hard if you thought this logo was gonna help you be a better person, but it won't. If you thought, Uguti, I'm going to tell you that you're your ancestors' wildest dreams, well, I didn't, and I don't believe that. So I'm not sorry for Uguti, I am sorry that you may have suffered under the myth of Islungu and the city that has brought you those anxieties, that made it hard for you to read the book and made it painful for you to think about your families and for you to miss villages that many of you may never have had. I'm sorry, it wasn't your fault, but it's your responsibility to crack like a seed. Even if it's not your fault, but what are you doing now? So okay, the seed fell from a rotten tree, but the seed is in the ground. So what are you gonna do? Do you want to grow, or do you want to be eaten by a cow, which is also, the part of the seed, because maybe in the manure, you're still going to crack. So either way, we're growing, we're trying, we're living, we're being Abante Bantu. And that's the only lesson, really. That's the only thing that I want you to take away from Ancestory. You're a person amongst people that were far more intelligent than you, far braver than you, far more damaged than you, who did more with far less, and they made a plan to be the people that they are. They also fucked up, yes, we know. Excuse me. I'm not at all trying to say, you would see, maybe we come from some idyllic village. Like in my village where I come from, there's drugs. Now there's murder. When I remember at 8 years old, Sisi Sibongile, she was a nurse and she was murdered by her boyfriend in Makai. So it's not as if, I'm not trying to say, oh, the city is bad, in Makai it's nice. No. The violence is there. The heartache is there, the alcoholism is there, the drugs are there now, the abuse is there, the dysfunction is there. Because there's no place in African life, in African hearts, and African spirits, where the damage of our history has not touched. So yes, I live next door to my uncle, you know, he checks up on my things, but we are super nice, you know, I love to put on my you know what I mean? So I don't want to create a dichotomy of you urban people are like this, and now that I'm back in Makaya, I'm acting like I never lived here. You know, I spent 12 years in the city, and I'm just like, meanwhile, but I don't want there to be this thing, there's us and there's them, because that is one of the problems of being an urban raised person of urban roots, to find yourself feeling othered from your own people, to find yourself feeling like a spectator, an outsider. So I don't want to create that sense of distance and that sense of alienation over and above the alienation of the life and the pace of the city and the demands of corporate work, the demands of bills, the demands of a 2-bedroom townhouse with 30,000 other townhouses, the demands of the traffic, the demands of extractive friendships, the demands of, you know, dysfunctional romantic relationships that are governed by money, which, by the way, there's a book out, which Jolo and all those things, but Lebohang Masango has written an amazing book. I love her perspective. I respect her perspective very much. Please do get it. It's called Soft Life, and it goes into the political economy of Jolo and you know, the romantic industrial complex, because it is an industry. You know, romance is an industry now, so that is something for you guys to look forward to and think about. And definitely, when you're buying Ancestory, please budget for that one also.
Yeah.
You know, and I did get a lot of inspiration from her and her research and her interest, and we would argue for years. I'm not talking about one day arguments. We've been arguing for 10 years about certain things, you know, and we got to an understanding of those things. And I keep mentioning you because you've been a big inspiration for me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. So she wrote the book, I wrote, she was like, okay, and having been in the city and known the difficulties and the challenges of friendships and community here, I must say that I really did luck out. There's my other husband there at the back, Marie. Thank you too, my friend. Thank you for making all of this possible. Thank you for helping me adjust to city life. She's the first friend I made when I moved to Gauteng, and I've just been like in her papa ever since. You know, she taught me everything I know about the city. She took me everywhere, introduced me to that guy over there. She's the reason why, you know. And so I'm very grateful for the community. I'm very grateful for the guidance that the city has brought, and I'm very grateful for the fruits of my time here. And so I know that if you've had the choice, you might make different, you know, decisions for what you want and where you are. But where you are, you have to just be the seed. You know, things are sprouting in concrete all the time. So now I can be like that, you know. I just don't want it to sound as if I'm like, you know, because no. I know that there are challenges, and I know, like, a big portion of my practice, a big inspiration for this book has been the pain of people in the city. And looking at it and saying to myself, why? Why haven't I said dropping? You know, and I can't relate because obviously I only came here as an adult. And so, constantly just negotiating that thing. Maria, why are people crying about this? What does that mean? Nova, why you guys, Shana men, Kanjan. You guys are dropping. Oh. You know, things like that. And so working in the city, working in Johannesburg, the support that I've received, the respect that I've received as a Sangoma. I came here as a very young Boko, 2 years in, I'm heading for 15 years now in Twasile. A bulk of my work has happened in the city. I've been challenged a lot. I've grown so much, and I've seen up front 2-3 generations of urban alienation and the results of it. I've seen 2-3 generations of assimilation, voluntary assimilation, involuntary assimilation, and the result of that in people's lives. And though some of it I'm just like, okay, just admit that you thought you were better, and that's why you're sad, but a lot of it is also just having to have a more nuanced and a much more compassionate understanding that a human being is a sum of so many different things, and while you may choose certain things for yourself, there is also a lot acting on you. And that's why I'm not that gogo that's like, manifest, in, because I know that there's a political reality acting on us as African people, whether we like it or not. And there are limits to our spiritual capacity, there are limits to our power, there are limits to our ancestors' abilities to support and assist us in these economies, in this world, with these limitations of class ceiling, racial profiling, gender-based violence, and all of that. And so my book was inspired by working in Dumbeni and just understanding and coming to terms and acknowledging a very different Black life reality to what I have come from and what I have now gone back to. And having also gone back, by the way, in Makaya, only to find people are following the same trajectory of cultural alienation, of assimilation into Islungu, of unhealthy living, of depression, of anxiety, of addiction, and aspiration, you know, people aspiring and the pressures of the aspiration, the pressures of wanting a certain life and not being able to achieve it and not understanding why, and taking out that anger, that frustration, that confusion on one another rather than looking at the environment. So the seeds are competing with other seeds instead of looking at the environment and saying, there isn't enough water here, it's a bit rocky, there's shale, it's waterlogged, we cannot grow. And the seeds are blaming other seeds for leaching nutrients out of the soil rather than looking at the soil and saying, we were not planted where we should have been. And so, thank you very much for the inspiration. Thank you for the challenges. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the care. Thank you for coming. But I heard good in Joburg book launches, you get a block of cheese and a glass of box wine. Not me. Okay, never. My ancestors, my mother, my father, my grandmother would be so ashamed. So please enjoy the party. Thank you so much. I can't believe actually Guti has in launch and about to figure. And you guys are taking me so seriously. Look at you. I'm so happy, Jay. I'm so happy.
So proud of you.
Thank you.
No.
It's such a weird thing.
Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story about Akona, guys? So Akona, I think I was pregnant. And I hadn't even seen her around or done anything. One day, 2 pairs of these tiny little Converse socks arrived at Tim's office. Oh, Akona, she works, I don't know where. Mina, I'm at home. We see each other on the internet. We don't hang out. She heard I was pregnant. She sent a present, 2 little Converse socks, 2 pairs. And all the kids wore them. You know? Yes, all 4 kids went through those socks. It was the first pregnancy. And the gift just arrived at Tim's office at Viacom. And I was just like, yes, I'm right, man. You know? And so that's been my experience. I've had some bad experiences, but not really from city things, just life things, because humans are like that, you know. But for the most part, I must say that Ancestry is my offering of gratitude and thanks for the city and its people and all your problems that I've seen over the years and all the times I've been like, and all the times I've just been like, you got cool. Your grandmother was born from the other side of I don't even understand. Like for me, the concept of grandmothers growing up in the city was just like, what? In my country, everybody knows. You know? In my country, I understand that this history, I know it's whatever. But in my mind, I thought everybody has a village. To save a time, everybody packs their bags and goes, although theoretically, academically, I knew, you know, you learn all about all those things like migration and da-da-da. Only to find out that's it. I was like, that's not right. That is not okay.
But now we have this brilliant book and it is more long-lasting. So thank you so much for that. And what I wanted to ask you is, I know that when you were writing, maybe there were times when it was like hard and but what were the parts So when the words were just flowing onto the page, when the story was just singing out of you, which parts did you really enjoy writing?
That's a very nice question. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, well, it's only a friend that can be like, when you didn't get into it. So get into it now. Yeah, well, I didn't want to talk about my writing experience because I hated it. I find it hard. I find it intimidating. I get anxious. And because I don't have the discipline of, make an experience of like an academic career or a corporate career where I've got to produce things on demand, like, I just do what I have to do in the society, and that's just it, So this taught me a lot of life skills and the discipline of just showing up to the page, whether you're going to put 2 words or 1 word. So it was very difficult, but it taught me that thing of, because I live by guidance, like, okay, I'm supposed to say this, okay, the bones are saying this, okay, I prayed and this is what happened, and then I plan, obviously, because I'm, a person. But I live my life very much like, and I have the privilege of living my life very much like, yeah, it doesn't feel right, I prayed about it, I'm not sure, let me wait for an answer. But the book forced me to show up every day. We had a Google Doc with my sister and Nova, and they were just like highlighting things like, this is vague. What do you say? So then I had to force myself to think differently, think out the box, and the part that I enjoyed the most in all of that was analyzing Inganegwana. I love that. And I found that there's so much in me that I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you can do until you have to do it. And so when I was analyzing Inganegwana, talking through them, writing things down, it made me feel such a strong sense of pride in my intelligence, in my capacity, in my eloquence, in my articulation, in my analytical abilities. I was like, so I felt really good about that. I loved analyzing him, looking at them and being like, yeah, babe, Then call my dad and be like, yes, you tell. What? And then I remember, which country? Ubangane said this to me before, Unkulu Kapteni had told me this before. Then I'm drawing from my elders, I'm drawing from my history, I'm drawing from experience of just being in Kaninjas, in Makaya, drawing from all of that, and referencing my childhood and all of those things. And it just made me feel so connected. It made me feel so, like, yeah, man. And it felt so empowering. I felt empowered, I felt confident, I felt capable when I was doing that. And it was fun. It was so much fun in those moments, but the rest of the time I didn't like to write. Thank you. I had to also write a book about only about them whole page. And so I should put it in, but I took all myself off the internet because I was tired of like putting so much thought and effort into sharing for people to just replicate and just imitate in a way that didn't feel genuine and respectful. I didn't invent anything that I'm saying, I know that, but I've taken the time to craft it a certain way, and I got tired of feeling like, and I thought, just but what? So that this ocean, I was like, no, refer to my book. And you can cite me, Kuma Banban. Yes. Yes.
How just following you on social media has made such an impact in Millennium, because I started following you on social media, and at the time, I had no inkling whatsoever about ukuthi isangoma siyini. The only interpretation that I had was that isangoma is a witch doctor. It's an evil connotation, you know? So, in a way, it started sparking a thought in my head, ukuthi, let me start researching ukuthi into yobungoma ishuthi and whatnot. And now, obviously, with how everything has just exploded with regards to what is ubungoma about, and you're learning about different aspects. Then you moved over to Instagram. Again, Moon is still following you, Navanje, on Instagram. First things first, this book, I'm not done with it yet. But what I've learned thus far in this book is fantastic. It's going to be much more easier now for me to go back home in Animbuzi. Because the truth is that I come from a home where some of these things are really not talked about in terms of imvelaphi, where we come from as Africans and whatnot. I remember the one time during lockdown. Lockdown was a blessing in disguise for me and my father. It was for the very first time when we sat down and we had conversations, hard conversations about where we are going as a people in this country specifically, right? Sometimes those debates got really heated. But now, because there's so much that I learned, especially with Ingane and the way that you interpreted it. Because now one day when I decide to have kids, it's now going to be easier for me to start passing along such knowledge. I cannot remember, and I'm a person who buys books. I stand to be corrected. I haven't seen a book that's like this. Yeah. I have not seen it.
That one wabakwakhe nama vibes ithe vele ngibhalile and vele
yes so nje thank you so much.
Yeah, and definitely hold your parents accountable because they take it for granted. I need to wonder they grew up in a different world. Yes. So in the time that our parents grew up, the way that they related and the access that they had to certain types of information and knowledge and those things, we don't have them anymore. The world has changed so much. Yep. So there's an assumption because it was just in the air. By osmosis, people just be about, but you have to be in the world that we live in, urbanized, suburbanized, nesilunges corner, the pressures and the TV, the internet and all of that. You have to be so deliberate in the effort that you make in making sure that ingane zakho ziyazazi ukuthi ziyoba ziyakhuluma noma ziyabuka noma ziyablabula noma zenzani. If you think ukuthi ngoba wena ukhulele eLamonto wherever wakhuluma isiZulu, nobody taught you. If you live in Randburg, you're gonna have to teach ingane zakho isiZulu. Tina, we lived in exile. Sibalekela amabhunu. My father made sure ukuthi uMathambisane was there. Taught my sister to read and write isiZulu. Zimbabwe ngenkani.
Yabona imnandi ke lento eyenza ngokwakho. Because the interesting part about that is that they are the very same persons who be like, by virtue of ukuthi sikhulele in a household where we speak isiZulu, you should be knowing certain words. Now you're being shamed for not knowing certain things as if you know it. And you're like, uzoyifunda kanjani leyo nto ekubeni uqale crash in multiracial schools. How am I supposed to actually know those particular things? I can only learn it by virtue of you actually telling me. You have to. Our parents, they take it for granted because their exposure was different. Tina, having grown up in exile, our parents made me. My parents didn't talk to me in isiZulu until I finished university. They refused. I was not allowed to khuluma isiNgisi endlini. Bayakhuluma isiNgisi nabanye abantu kodwa thina besingavumelekile ukukhuluma isiNgisi endlini. Umuntu uthi, I think umama vela kubuka angikuzi ukuthi uthini qala phansi uyoziluma ke ufune lelo gama uzuthole, and then and I understand the amount of aggression that my parents had of you're gonna go emakhaya uzosina, you're gonna serve, uzocleana, uzokwenza,
Because if you don't, if you are not deliberate, and if you are not stern and consistent, almost in a very, not fundamentalist, but whatever the strong but positive way of being a fundamentalist is, if you don't make that effort in the world that we live in, you're going to wake up and your kids are going to be like, oh, you know? And then and it's touching you, but you can't explain why. What's why in an oh, you don't. So I really commend my parents for the amount of effort. We grew up Zimbabwe, we grew up Swaziland, when but Oksanayo, they made sure ukuthi ekhaya sikhona siyavakasha and siyazazi ukuthi mina nangubaba wami nangumunye ubaba wami nangugogo wami nangubani isiZulu uyasifunda uyasikhuluma uyakwazi ukuyichaza ukuthi ubani you participate yonke lento leyo. You have to make the effort, and I saw my parents making the effort under very difficult circumstances, and also under circumstances where there was no social currency in maintaining a rural, grounded home lifestyle. People are assimilating, people are aspirational, and there was no social currency, there was no social benefit to ensuring but they did it. And that's we just ended up making the decision to go to Makai for that particular reason.
Yeah, if people want to still ask, they can ask. Those who want to eat, they can eat. I'm here for you. I'm ready.
Take the breaks of
Concerned, but it's just like, it's my book, so I do what I want, you know? And so if I'm not that interested, or if I feel like you can find it somewhere else in a much better way, then do that. So this book was just a, you know what, my friend, think about this and go home and talk about it with somebody else. My job is done. And so, yes, I could have, and I do think there were parts that I could have made longer or more expanded on, but at the end of the day, I was just like, I suga. So you know, so yeah, I guess yes and no. It could have been, but I didn't care enough to, not care, but you know, it got to a point where it's like, I need to finish this book. I can't say everything. It's not my responsibility to teach and do everything all the time for everybody. What's up?